Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Kansas City Profiles presented by Easton Roofing. Well, we had such a good time the first time around with John Sundvold, we decided to do it again. Well, that's not completely true, actually. We had so much tale to tell that we only got part way through. So it's time now for the second part of our Kansas City Profile with John Sundvold, the former Missouri star and NBA, longtime veteran player for 9 seasons in the NBA, and then on to great success in business and in the broadcasting booth as well. And where we left off last time around was just as he was on the cusp of getting to the NBA, knowing that he was likely to be a draft choice, but not knowing perhaps how high. And we'll start it up with the process of him grinding his way through the NBA, carving out a career as a rotation regular, a participant in the three-point shooting contest in the NBA, and one-time percentage leader in the NBA in three-point shooting. Then his transition into the business world and eventually broadcasting as well. All kinds of things to talk about with a fascinating storyteller and just all-around really fun guy. A tenacious competitor who somehow kept that in place while still being the kind of person that everybody wants to go out and shake hands with and have a beverage with or two. It's John Sundvold, Part 2, coming up on Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing. We're here with Joe Spiker, the CEO and president of Easton Roofing. And Joe, you had a great year in 2019, a record year. 2020 comes, things are moving smoothly along, and then the coronavirus comes. But your company seemed to be very ready, very proactive, and very ready to serve your customers well.
Yeah, we adopted social distancing very early before the cities even put out the notices. And we started working from home. We are largely cloud-based as a company, so that transition was easy. Our technicians are wearing masks and gloves, and salespeople are not meeting with homeowners. We're doing everything digitally and doing everything we can to do our part to get over this as quickly as possible.
So for any needs that people have right now, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, you can always call us, 913-257-5426. But the best way is to go to eastonroofing.com, put your information in, and we'll give you a call.
Easton Roofing, integrity matters. It's time now to get some great assistance on healthcare with Chad Beisel from no-nonsense-healthcareninja.com. And Chad, even your business's name would indicate that you have a real aggressive way and an important way to go after some health insurance for your clients.
What I've found out in the industry is just a lot of people are really confused. They don't know what plans are good, what their plans offer, how they cover. And so I've just taken the approach of being really educated on what options are available to clients and showing them all the options that are available and making sure they understand them so they can pick and choose what options are good for them.
And one thing that's really important, of course, is access to doctors and hospitals.
Absolutely. That's becoming a big issue for a lot of people. Some of the plans out there are going to restrict those clients to where they can and cannot go. So if you live just outside the Kansas City metro, some of the counties outside, you may not be able to go to some of the hospitals up here in the Kansas City area. So making sure that you have a plan that's got doctors and hospitals and places you want to go is really, really important today.
Learn more by visiting no-nonsense-healthcareninja.com and let Chad help you. Cinematic Visions has been an affordable solution for professional media production in Kansas City since 2003, offering award-winning video production and creation, as well as a wide array of digital and social media management services. From planning, scripting, filming, editing, and post-production to delivering your product to a watching world, Cinematic Visions will provide professional and affordable services for you and your business with the necessary return on investment to make it all worthwhile. Cinematic Vision's goal is to unlock the power of storytelling through video and a strong online presence for your company. Beyond the numbers, they want to inspire and evoke your clients to feel and act. Let my friends at Cinematic Visions embed your brand where it belongs, in your customers' minds. You can find them online at cinematicvisions.com or with a quick phone call at 816-600-6300. I'm here with Tim Emerson, the owner of Emerson & Company. And Tim, give us an idea of the range of services that you provide from Emerson & Company.
At Emerson & Company, we do credit card processing, payroll services. We do bookkeeping, merchant accounts like point-of-sale systems.
What would you say differentiates you from other companies in the field, and what makes you special?
I think what makes us unique is that we're a small local business making regional decisions on companies. We create a profile for the business and then put it out to our different vendors in a very competitive environment and tailor those needs to the specific business, which usually ends up in a great fit or great result for the company.
And, of course, the idea is to save money, right?
Save money, and actually sometimes I'm surprised where actually a solution that may cost a little bit more ultimately does save money, but we're not conditioned to think like that sometimes.
Emerson and Company. Check them out at emerson-co.com or call them at 816-360-9092.
If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you.
John, you do become a first-round draft choice, and this obviously is the early 80s. You're not going to get rich, but it's kind of good money for that, the 16th pick in the draft. What was your reaction to it? How they didn't have you didn't go to the green room and all then at that point in time. How did the whole process work for the draft at that point in time?
Well, it's quite funny, Danny. I had hired, my agent was from Seattle, and Seattle drafted me, but he never had heard from them at all. So the night before the draft, I think I was playing in Summer League in the Kansas City Bell Summer League, Bell Rec Center down there in Kansas City, which was great. All the Kings and former players and KU, all the guys would play down there. The night before the draft, I believe Indiana Pacers had called my house. Again, there's no cell phone, so called my house. My dad talked to the general manager, and at the time, they had the second pick in the draft. They're going to take Stepanovic, and then they had the last pick of the first round. And they told my dad, well, if John's still there, we're thinking we're going to take him. So I came home, my dad said that, and I said, well, maybe, maybe not, who knows, because there might be someone else there that they want. So the draft happened in the afternoon. My brother Scott, now an engineer in Kansas City at the time, and his wife came over to my parents' house. And so it was my parents, my brother Scott, his wife Edie, and myself. And I think I allowed the local Columbia news station to be outside because I didn't want them inside. I didn't want that agony and defeat look on my face if I never had a name called. Although back then there were, 8, 9, 10 rounds of drafts, so you're going to go somewhere. But so the 16th pick was coming up, and that was Seattle. And I remember they had a camera behind the two guys on the phone from Seattle. And the next thing you know, they show the guys writing my name down. And my brother Scott goes, that's your name. And they take that piece of paper right up, and Larry O'Brien or whoever said the Seattle Sonics draft John Sundvold. And we just sat there like, wow, that just happened. So the first phone call was from a neighbor lady across the street. Because I picked up the phone and, it was Mrs. Singleton, and she said, do you know you were just drafted? I go, yes, but could you please hang up because I'm waiting for another phone call. Then Lenny Wilkins called me, and Lenny called me and said, hope the negotiations go well. We look forward to having you out. So that was fun. Again, now let's go back. I'm the youngest of four boys. So my brother Scott, it was starting to get a little crazy. The phone was ringing a lot. And so Scott and I just said, hey, let's go play golf. And so we go play golf, and we're walking down the first fairway. And he said, so what's this mean? You're the 16th pick. I said, well, I'm going to get a 3-year contract, and 2 years will be guaranteed. Now, again, I'm the little brother. He's looking at me like, so they're going to pay you, the pros are going to pay you to play basketball. Like, you think you can play in Seattle? I said, well, I don't know if I can play in Seattle, but I'm their first-round pick, so they're going to pay me whether I play or not. Now think of this, Danny. The great part of this was in 1979, my senior year in high school, Seattle Supersonics won the World Championship.
Right.
Jack Sikma, Freddie Brown, Gus Williams, Lonnie Shelton. Well, these are the guys that I'm now going to play with. And I'm just this kid from Blue Springs. And again, my brother Scott's looking at me like, so you're really, you don't have to try it. Like, you're going to make it. I said, yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there. So he laughed about it. We talked about it. And to this day, we still kid, because on one of the first trips, so my second game of my career, and I had a great exhibition season with the Sonics, and I couldn't have gone to a more welcoming place of veteran players. Now, again, the difference back then versus when I ended my career in Miami was, back then, a first-round draft pick, I was probably paid out of the 12 guys maybe the ninth highest. Like, I wasn't coming in. They didn't pay you like you were going to be the star. You made money. So the guys, Fred Brown and Gus Williams, who guards I got to play with, and then it was Al Wood that came in and Ricky Silvers. These guys taught me how to be a pro. And Fred Brown used to tell me, it's not how many minutes you play a game, it's how many years you play. Like, this is a business now. So, but I'll go back. My second game of my career in the regular season, the first game I got in a couple minutes. I don't think I took a shot. Second game was in Kansas City. Obviously in front of my friends and family, people that had seen me play. I was a bit nervous, but I was relaxed because I love Kemper Arena. And I'll never forget, I got in the second quarter. Laney Wilkins was great. I'm in my hometown. I hit 3 quick buckets, so I got 6 going at halftime. I go in towards the end of the third quarter, playing well. I'm in the whole fourth quarter. I score 12 points. We win the game. A great homecoming for me. And it was a great start. But future trips, I think it was, and it could have been that game or the next time I came to Kansas City. We were coming in the day before, and this is kind of how the game used to be. You'd fly in, and you decide you're going to practice as a team. And this time we were going to go to Avila College. So my brother Scott, who lives in Kansas City, he was going to come watch practice. And again, he's now watching these guys, these pros. Now, little brother John's really not a pro, but the other guys are pros. So he's going to watch practice, and then he's going to take me out to see my parents in Blue Springs, and brother Bob will come over from Columbia. We'll have dinner. So while I'm at practice, we get in the car, brother Scott, and we go home to have dinner, and I hear him say to oldest brother Bob, John's pretty good. so I hear Bob going, yeah, you think so, huh? I mean, come on. He's been good for a long time. But it's funny, again, this back to the pecking order. It's funny when you're a family and you're the youngest one, you're still the youngest one. It never did change. But I couldn't have gone to a better team because, again, I learned to be a pro. I learned what it was that if I didn't get in one game, again, I'll never forget it. And this is what I did towards the end of my career. Didn't get in one game. So I'm in the locker room. I'm not that happy, right? We're competitive. And I'm getting dressed, and tap on the shoulder is Freddie Brown, downtown Freddie Brown, who's now at that time probably 32 years old, on his last year left probably. And Freddie said, hey, you can't take a day off. Get your stuff back on. Go get on the treadmill. And then I'll meet you tomorrow before practice. We'll get shooting you. And that's when he says, now how many minutes you play, it's how many years. He said, you can't miss a day of working. So, I listened. I got on the treadmill, ran 2 miles, whatever, got there early the next day. Fred and I could have horse contests that would last forever. We didn't miss. I mean, it would last forever. But he probably kept me from just being a 1 year or 2 year pro, because you go through so many ups and downs. It's so different. It's a business. They can trade you when they want. You might start. You might come off the bench. But what he taught me was just be ready. When they call your number and you're not ready, then it won't be called anymore, and someone else will take your spot. So I learned a lot from that team, and it was great. Obviously, Jack Sickman just went in the Hall of Fame, so seeing that happen. But I got to see some of the greatness right in front of my eyes.
You play. I'm sure people would be curious what your rookie contract was.
My rookie contract was a 3-year deal. How about this? So it was $120,000. I think it was 120, 140, 160, 2-year guaranteed, $5,000 signing bonus to move to Seattle, to get to drive or whatever. However, I was getting to Seattle, to $5,000. So here's what my agent did, because here's what they said. we're going to pay, I think maybe 120. So they said, we will pay John $5,000 if he's on the all-star team, or $5,000 if he's on the all-rookie team. And so my agent said, wait a second, you didn't draft him he's not going to be an all-star. Let's just be honest. He's going to be a terrific player for you. So my agent came up with, if I'm third amongst the guards, now again, they had Gus Williams, who was an all-star.
Right.
Al Wood, the great guard from North Carolina, was our other guard. We had David Thompson, one of the greatest players to ever play the game. He was coming off an injury to play for us. You had Fred Brown, and you had me. So you're trying to think, okay, what minutes am I going to have? So my agent negotiated, how about if John is third amongst the guards in assists, is $5,000, third amongst the guards in steals is $5,000. And if he starts the game, pay him $1,000, because you really didn't draft him to be a starter. You drafted him to play behind Gus Williams. So they agreed to that. So I hit the marks for steals and assists. And the starts, I'd have to look. I didn't know if I got a couple in or
two.
If Gus was hurt or something.
You got two.
Two?
I'm looking at it now. Yes.
Yeah. So if Gus had a bad ankle or whatever it was. Here's what's funny, and we can go back later, but when I got traded to San Antonio, the start of my third year, and before we get into that, but here's where this contract. So I'm in that third year, and Cotton Fitzsimmons trades for me. And I'm playing well for the Spurs. Now, they, at the time, were the cheapest organization in the NBA. This is before the new ownership took over, many, many years ago. They're a very cheap organization at the time, even though I loved playing for them. So what happened was we had a player, they traded George Gervin. We had Alvin Robertson, kid from Arkansas, who was an all-star.
Yep.
And Johnny Moore, kid out of the University of Texas, very good too. Johnny got sick and really ended his career. But I would come in after the jump ball. Cotton Fitzsimmons would yell at me, go in. And I was playing really well, but they weren't starting me. I was the only one who knew, of the players, I had this contract. If I started a game, I got $1,000, up to 20, right?
Right.
I'll never forget, we're on the road. I played great up in Seattle, my former team. We're going to Golden State. I remember warming up. I always got there early because I wanted to get shots in. And I think Cotton's son, Gary Fitzsimmons, came out and said, hey, Sonny, can we see you a second? So Cotton we're standing there back, not in the locker room, outside, somewhere in the concrete corridor. And he said, Sonny, I want to start you, but you got that thing in your contract. And I looked at it funny, like that really shouldn't be a play, shouldn't be in his mind.
Right.
Or, but I looked at him, I said, well, I'll take it out. He said, you'll take it out? I go, yeah, I'll take it out. So we called the general manager on the phone, and I've got okay that they take that out. Well, then that night I start for, 30 or 40 games. But, it's back to it's a business. And so, but the first time, I think 140, 120, 140, 160. So that was a great amount to make, to be honest.
And how did you view that kind of money? Then you went to business school. Obviously, you graduated from business school. $120,000 in the early '80s. It was a lot of money for a regular human being. How did you view it?
Well, I thought I was rich. I mean, I was. It's tax bracket was high. I remember. But again, personalities. Everybody's different. And if you have kids everybody knows who you are, your family, your brothers, sisters, people spend money differently. I pretty much save my money. The only time I would spend money would be the money I would get for going to an appearance. So if the Seattle Sonics,
right,
some of the older guys didn't want to do anything, and I got it. They had families, but I was bored to death. You go to practice from 10 to 12, and if there was no game that night, I'm 22 years old just hanging out. But they might say, hey, so-and-so is paying $250 to go sign autograph, do something. I'd go. And then I would use that money to, say, go buy clothes or,
right.
My agent used to call because they kind of were in charge of going to the bank and go, yeah, you're not spending much. I go, no, I'll spend what they pay me to go do service stuff. So, but no, it was
So you're kind of saving. You're kind of saving your. It sounds like European basketball, where they get basically save the whole contract and pay you. But I mean, you were saving almost all of your contract and putting it away, right?
Well, and I didn't know how long it would last. Let's be
Right.
honest. I'll be honest. I'm a 6'2" white guy, and I didn't. There weren't a lot of me running around the court that I was playing on. So you're trying to figure out how you survive. Lenny Wilkins then decided to be the GM after my second year. My second year wasn't as good as my first, and our team wasn't as good. And so you're taking a team like Seattle that won a world championship, and now 5 or 6 years later, we weren't very good. And they decided to kind of dismantle some pieces. And I was probably not, I don't think I was the first one, but I was traded at the end of training camp. But again, this is this is the cold business. The opener, I think, was on a Friday or Saturday night, maybe the season opener for all the teams, and maybe Friday night. And on Wednesday morning, we had a day off. We had 13 players. They had to get down to 12. This is in Seattle. New coach is Bernie Bickerstaff. I knew through camp I wasn't Bernie's kind of player. Bernie was a heavy defensive guy.
Mm-hmm.
And Danny, I'll be honest, me guarding guys in the NBA, that wasn't, if I'd have had a rope or something, that would have been better. But I wasn't stopping anybody. So the end of training camp, some of our exhibition games, I started playing more, and I knew, because I really thought, well, maybe my career's done. But I thought, well, maybe he's playing me to trade me, right? Maybe
Right.
someone needs what I do. So sure enough, on the Wednesday morning, we're going to have a day off. And you had to practice Thursday, games Friday. 13 guys. Well, my lovely picture's on either the front page or back page of the sports paper of the Seattle Times. And I think the headline was, will Sonny be the next to go? Because they have to make one cut.
Right.
And I was helping a teammate of mine named Danny Brains, who was an All-American from Utah, about 4 years older than me. I was helping Danny move into his house from a storage unit. And he was kind of telling me, hey, don't worry, you're going to be playing somewhere. You're going to play. Because I'm thinking, I'll just be cut, I'll be done. And so I got home, again, no cell phones, which people, kids can't understand how we communicated. But at about 6 o'clock, I was in my apartment in Seattle in Bellevue, Washington. I lived in downtown Bellevue, Washington. And I was standing there, picked up the phone. And we didn't even have caller ID, right? You didn't know who it was. Just pick it up. And it was Lenny Wilkins. And Lenny said, and Lenny's one who drafted me, said, hey, you're going to be terrific. You're going to go, we're trading you to San Antonio. Cotton Fitzsimmons really wants you. They can't sign John Paxson. They traded Gervin and the rights of John Paxson to Chicago. So I said, okay. I said, what happens next? He said, well, I'm sure San Antonio's going to call you in about the next 5 or 10 minutes. I said, this is, I'm a 24-year-old kid. So I hang up. And instead of calling anybody, right, I'm just waiting for the phone to ring, and the phone rings, it's Cotton Fitzsimmons. And if anybody remembers Cotton, he's like, oh, son, what is it, son? What is it, son? And so I'm saying, Coach, how are you? He said, and his first thing he said, you got to remember, he said, don't think that Seattle doesn't want you. He said, we really want you. So here's what you're going to do. I'm going to turn it over to our travel guy, who was actually the trainer and the travel coordinator and everything else. He's going to make sure you're on the flight next morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I hang up. The trainer gets me set. I'm at 6 a.m. flight out of Seattle. I call my agent. Thankfully, he lived in Seattle, which is really good. I said, hey, John, I just got traded. And he said, good, because it'll be a good opportunity. I said, okay, I got to have you get my lease done here or whatever we do. And Danny is back again. I'm a young guy. All I did was rent furniture except my bed. My bed was the only thing you'd buy because you needed a good bed. So everything was rented. I had a little stereo unit. I had a car. I told my agent, sell the car, and then I'm sure the team will ship whatever else. So I land in San Antonio. They pick me up. I go to Marriott. I go to practice, and again, I'd played against all these guys, and the weird part was I'd always played well against San Antonio. But here now they're my new teammates. The next night we open with the Lakers at home. I don't really know any of our plays or anything, but Cotton knew how to use me. We went in, I think I had 12 or 14 points. I stayed at the Marriott, and all this time, so this is 85, when the Royals are winning. So throughout training camp in Seattle, I'm in the games of the exhibition games. I'm seeing how we're doing against Toronto, blah, blah, blah. And I remember watching Game 7 from a hotel room as the Royals beat the Cardinals. Mm-hmm. And so, that now here I am in San Antonio. And just like that, from one day to the next, I got a new team. I'm on the court with someone else, new teammates, but you're just, playing ball. You're just back to doing what you do.
We've talked almost in your life, obviously, was revolved incredibly amount around sports. Your NBA's career has started. What was the social life for you? I don't know when you met your wife. How's all this going as you're starting an NBA career?
So I met my wife my first year out of college. She was a couple grades behind me in college. Never knew her. She's from Sykeston, Missouri, so the Boot Hill, southeast Missouri. She was living with her grandparents in Kansas City, working at a bank for her summer job. And some of my friends knew some of her friends when we were out one time and ran into each other. And that was kind of short-lived, but as far as we got to know each other by phone, and when I was home in the summer, then we got engaged. So she was actually supposed to come see me in Seattle about 2 months later. But then I called and said, well, I'm not in Seattle, so we got to cancel that plans. We got married the next year. After that first year in San Antonio, then we were married. So Then all of a sudden, then things changed because now I'm responsible for somebody, in which I really think helped my basketball career, because at some point, sometimes you're thinking, this is hard. Maybe it won't work. Maybe I'll be cut. Maybe I'll be whatever. And then I'll just go back somewhere and do something else. But once you're married, you're thinking, well, I like this job. I like that it pays well.
Right.
I'm playing basketball. This is what I'm good at. So, my wife and I spent 2 years together in San Antonio and then 4 in Miami, because then I headed to the Miami Heat.
Tell me about, how your relationship developed. What was your first date like? What was it that you liked about her? What was it she liked about you? Was it love at first sight? What was the deal?
So we met outside of Kelly's Bar at the West Point. There's the meeting spot.
Right.
And that was in summer. I had called her to see if she could go do something, but she was busy, and I was going to play Summer League in San Diego. When I came back, we ran into each other a couple times before I left. I would always stay in Missouri from about June till mid-September. Camp always started 1st of October. So I would stay till mid-September, watch about 2 Mizzou football games, and then take off. Our first date was a lunch date. And then I headed out. And the rest of it was really by phone, long-distance phone. And she'll tell you that she had bad grades because I would call at the wrong time of night because we're 2 hours in Seattle difference. And then the next summer, we spent most of our time together. She was in Columbia working, right, and I lived at my brother's house. Columbia was always a good spot for me to work out. People knew me. It wasn't crazy that I was some pro athlete. I could use the university facilities. I could play with the players here. I could work out. And my wife was working a summer job. So she had one more year left of school, and we got engaged. And then after that, she joined me in San Antonio. And so, and honestly, we loved San Antonio. And then I was heading to Miami. But that's how it started.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Firsthand, I have enjoyed the benefits of the CBD products from Canaway. My back feels better and better these days, as a major part of my routine are the pain-relieving salve and the Pure Gold oil. And recently I had the pleasure of a treatment session using the Canaway CBD in conjunction with the Microlight 830 cold laser. The non-invasive treatment session worked wonders, and I could barely tell I was even being touched. TML 830 is the first 3B cold laser to get FDA approval, and in addition, the combination treatment with CBD is patent pending. The new Smart Laser is the only hands-free cold laser in the world and is used by athletic trainers, chiropractors, MDs, physical therapists, and veterinarians everywhere. You can learn more about all the great benefits from the complete line of Canaway CBD products by contacting my friend Sherry McCants at 515-208-6312. That's 515-208-6312 to get outstanding information about Canaway. Most of us have experienced auto accidents, and it's no fun. And even less fun is trying to work on the insurance aspects afterwards and getting full value after an auto accident. I'm here with David Cowan from RecExpert.com. And David, you have an unusual and important niche for people after an auto accident.
We have a passion to teach car wreck clients what they deserve. Getting your car repaired only fixes the damage and the paint. Getting paid for your car's loss in value is called diminished value. Chances are you've never heard of this before because most people aren't looking out for you. We help people collect thousands to tens of thousands of dollars for their car's loss in value after the wreck.
And if somebody wants to come to you for that, what's the original assessment cost them?
We offer a free review of any insurance claim to see how we can help.
You can't beat that. Great expertise and assistance in getting full value after an auto accident from David Cowan. Visit RecExpert.com and learn more.
Hi, everybody. This is Matt Llewellyn from 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. I just want to thank everybody for supporting local restaurants during this time of uncertainty. 23rd Street Brewery is now open until this pandemic is over. And right now, more than anything, local restaurants need your help and support. Come on out and see us. 23rd Street Brewery is open now from 11:30 till 9 o'clock for dine-in and carry-out. Whatever we can do to help you out, maybe with your catering needs, too. I appreciate all the support, and thank you for continuing to shop local.
It's time to visit once again with Dr. Brad Woodle of Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. And Dr. Brad, your group has reached a significant milestone in receiving a prestigious award.
Danny, we've been honored for the 10th year in a row to receive the 5-Star Service Award from Integrity Doctors. And what this means is that all of our offices throughout Kansas City have made sure to give people excellent chiropractic and acupuncture care, be on time, and do a very complete and thorough job, and have great responses back from patients.
I know firsthand because I was just treated, for instance, today by you. You have a wide range of fantastic services.
Absolutely. Chiropractic, acupuncture, physiotherapies, rehab, anything that you need to keep you well in bones, muscles, joints, and nerves.
And I can't say how much it's benefited me in the time I've coming here, upwards of 2 years. My back has improved 100%. And you can have that same kind of treatment too. For more information and your chance for a healthier way of life, visit asfca.com/Danny today. If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at Danny@DannyKlinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you. What would you say it was the biggest adjustment for you to playing professional basketball from college? College, this obviously more, you're playing for your university. Maybe wins and losses mean a little bit more. I don't know. The tone of what you're talking about is how businesslike it all was. Was there still the ruthless competition to win games? Are you thinking about yourself more? When you're a role player like that, give me a sense of what it was like.
Well, I hate to say self is first, but it is. Your agent might call and say, hey, you need better numbers. Meaning, if you're a role player like me, and again, if you're in the rotation, there wasn't many times, maybe my last, when I fought some injuries, there wasn't many times that I wasn't a regular in a rotation.
Right.
And that meant 8 or 9 guys playing like every night. But even then, there are moments, I think my agent would remind me, or Fred Brown, is that, okay, especially Fred Brown, he was really on me the fact that don't ball fake that shot and swing the ball around, we're going to get a worse shot. Like, if you're open, you shoot it. Like, there's 24 seconds. That's all we have. We're not going back out to set this thing up and we're going to run some big play. And so as the progression in my career, my agent might say, hey, give me a little this or a little that, because, he's going to argue the fact I'm a good team player, or I do this or do those things. But numbers are what probably get you paid. And so it's totally a business, even though they might like you. You go to training camp, and let's say there's 20 guys at training camp or 22, and only 12 are going to make it. And you can see the numbers. My second contract was a 3-year deal that I had no guarantees. So Ed Neely and I roomed together in one of the training camps in San Antonio. And Ed and I could watch guys cut themselves, meaning, let's say, a drafted a kid out of Villanova. He thought he was we knew, let's say he was a defensive star. Well, he was going to show everybody how good offensively he was. Well, you knew then he was cutting himself. And Ed and I knew how we could make teams. If Ed and I were on the same team, I promise you he set the best picks on me so I could make shots. He didn't make any mistakes. He might sit on the bench at San Antonio, and if they had to get the ball in bounds in the last 3 seconds, Cotton Fitzsimmons would say, "Hey, Niels, get in." And Ed would come in because he's going to get the ball to the foul shooter at the end of the game, right? He didn't make mistakes. He got all rebounds. He set picks. He ran the play. So it's a selfish way, but the reality is there's only so many stars on a team. Everybody else plays a role. And even if you're that 12th guy, there's a reason you're there. The coaches have to trust you. And so my game was solid enough to trust for coaches. But where I think what happened for me was at training camp when some odd reason, and I don't know, probably divine from up above, is that every time I was probably on the edge of being the last one cut or this or that between, you're only keeping 5 guards, I would have these really, really good games in exhibition. I mean, it would last game, second from last, I'd have 25, I'd get 3 threes. I mean, it would be just one more thing that they would say, well, gosh, he does do that for us. And we can trust exactly what he does, right? Shows up on time, puts the work in. And I think it becomes more, your team, you want to win, but it's a selfish world. I mean, there isn't one guy not quite looking at his stat sheet right away after the game. And that's the challenging part, especially for young players and young teams. Older teams are different. They've already established themselves, and it makes it different than what a young team does.
Your best year statistically was your first year in Miami after the expansion draft. Was that the most satisfying, or were there other things satisfying for you?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I had a year in San Antonio that averaged double figures.
Right.
And started.
Yes. Yep.
Started, let's say, half the games. Satisfying the fact that I ran the show as a point guard. Had a few double-doubles against some good teams. More of an all-round player. When I got to Miami, so what happened was I had a stress fracture in my leg. And I played on it in San Antonio because of, there's a date, let's say December 22nd. If you're on the team after that day, you're paid the full year.
Right.
If not, you're cut. So I was sitting out because I had the stress fracture. I was heading home, or I was heading to my wife's family's house in Sykeston, Missouri, about the 21st of December. Then I get a phone call from my agent. And again, I have this crack in my bone. And my agent says, could you play if you had to? Because the doctors are saying I shouldn't be playing. I shouldn't play. I said, yeah, I can play. What's up? And I know what the date is. It's the 21st, one more day, and I'm guaranteed or not. He said, well, I really think you should play. And I said, okay. So I caught a flight to Chicago, played against the Bulls next night, and they cut somebody else. And so there I was. So I played the full year, stress fracture in my tibia bone, which is kind of like shin splints. Hurt like heck, but the harder you ran, it was okay. And the big deal was, well, we'll just, rest over the summer. That was the time the expansion draft was going to happen. Now I'm one of the regular guys at San Antonio, and the next thing you know, they get to protect 8 of the 12 players. Well, at the time, I'm one of the 8, playing well. But I told my wife, I said, I don't think they'll protect me because of this injury. And my wife thought, well, that'd be crazy. You're one of their guys. I said, I know, but I just have a feeling. So they didn't protect me. So the next thing you know, I'm on a flight to Miami and Charlotte. There's a new expansion team so the doctors can see my leg. And they both teams agreed, well, he'll probably be fine eventually. And so then Miami took me. So when I got to Miami, I wasn't the key to my basketball was being in great shape. I didn't do much that summer. Tried to heal this bone. So I get to Miami. Miami's got a bunch of hodgepodge of veteran players like myself and Pat Cummings and Pearl Washington and Rory Sparrow and Scott Hastings. And then they're going to build a team for the future with rookies and young guys, and they're going to play a lot, and we're just going to hold over. Well, finally, when my legs got underneath me, I had struggled in camp. Finally, when I got going, it was apparent we were so bad offensively. I mean, we were really bad offensively that I was going to they were taking me off the ball of any point guard job. We're going to just have you come off picks. If you don't shoot it, we're taking you out of the game. Like, literally, you better shoot because we're bad. So, yeah, I just shot, when I could, when I was healthy enough. And so that was a year I shot over 52% from three-point line.
That's right.
A lot of picks were set for me. You know, it was a fun year because it was the first year for the Miami Heat. We were the place to be. And Miami is not much different than Hollywood. So whether it's Madonna, Sylvester Stallone, any of those people, they were at the game, right? It was the place. Jimmy Buffett had a seat right at the end of our bench. I used to talk to him every ball game. He'd drive up from wherever he was staying, Key West, I believe, and he'd drive up and we would chit-chat. And we weren't very good. We didn't win many games, but it was entertaining. I mean, we were always in most games until talent would win on the other side. But, you know, teams liked coming to Miami. The weather was great. My wife and I enjoyed it. So, but the whole time, Danny, what's funny is I'm playing. It's the end of my contract. It's my 6th year. And I think, well, I'm going to be done. Now I'm playing. Now I'm scoring. Doing some things. Was in the All-Star game for three-point shootout. And lo and behold, my agent calls me. And at the time, I didn't think the coach really didn't like me, like a bunch. Again, more of a defensive-minded guy. He was building a young team. And Billy Cunningham was the general manager. Billy and I played golf together a lot. Me being a golfer, the thing I did, I had 3 tickets to every game, 1 for my wife, and then I'd give 2 to any golf pro, places I wanted to play golf at, which I thought was a wise choice.
Yes.
So anyway, but Billy and I Billy said, you know, a lot of teams want you, John. And if I get a call for you to be traded, then we'll trade you. If you agree, you know, so it works out for both of us. Prior to him and I having that conversation, my agent had called from Seattle and said, John, they want to sign you to a new deal. I said, what do you mean new deal? I don't think the coach even likes me. He's playing me to trade me. Because he and I had had that conversation. The coach said, I'm going to play you a bunch so I can trade you. And I was thinking, well, okay. And that ticks you off competitively, but he played me, and I had my best 2 or 3 week span you could ever have. So I'm telling my agent they're playing me to trade me, and the agent says, "Yeah, but the owners, they love you." He goes, "You know." So my agent comes down, stays with my wife and I. We had a place in Coral Gables, and I go on the road trip. You know, a couple of days. I come back, and he said, "Here's the deal. Tried to get 4 years guaranteed, but it's 3 years guaranteed." I said, guaranteed. And my wife's looking at him like, guaranteed. You got a bad shoulder, you got bad legs, you just wear down. And my agent said, but if you keep going like you're going, there's going to be a new deal, NBA Players Association deal. The money could be higher. I said, I know, John, but what if the coach doesn't play me after this? He goes, well, that's true too. And my wife kept saying, so the 3 years are guaranteed.
So I assume you took the deal.
Yeah. We took the deal, and that's when Billy Cunningham would say, hey, here's the deal. If he said, we have enough second-round draft picks to last us forever here in Miami. But if some team calls for you. So the first time he yelled at me was after practice. He said, hey, the New Jersey Nets would like you. Now, the New Jersey Nets were going to probably be the 7th or 8th seed, probably play the Celtics, be done in round 1, right?
Right.
And Billy's looking at me like, you don't want to go to New Jersey, do you? I go, no, I really don't. I mean, I don't. It's cold there. They're going to, you know. And then I think maybe Milwaukee was the other one, and they were going to be a 4 or 5 seed. But this was still back in the days of Michael Jordan and the Celtics, or the Bulls and the Celtics. And I'm thinking, okay, if one of those teams, yeah, it's different. But do I want to, here I am in Miami, I drive an old Jeep to practice. I got my golf clubs in the back. do I want to go to Milwaukee to be on the 5 seed and play Philadelphia in the 4 seed and be out in the first round?
Right.
That didn't appeal to me either. And Billy's saying, John, they're offering a second round pick. We don't need any of these. So it's up to you. I said, you know what, I'm good. And so eventually all that does is, I ended my career there. I had neck surgery on my 9th season. But again, I go back to what Fred Brown taught me. You can't take a day off. So I became that kind of guy to the guys like Bimbo Coles, Keith Askins. When they were rookies and they didn't get in the game, they were in the locker room. They're sitting there getting dressed. Say, hey, come on, let's go lift weights. Let's lift. Let's get on treadmill, and then I'll meet you at the gym tomorrow, and we'll shoot. And, it comes full circle. And you're trying to help other guys, and you're saying, hey, it's not the minutes, man. It's how many years. How many can you get in before your body breaks down and you can't play? So, it's a business, and I kind of covered all areas of the business, but enjoyed every part of it because it's a challenge. It's a challenge to play, and it's a challenge to be good, and the challenge of really surviving because every year, again, I'll go back to Cy. When you're a 6'2" guy, every year there's tons of 6'6" and under dudes coming to training camp. I mean, they're, everywhere. So the survival rate is quite low for smaller guys. But, you work at it, and if you're professional and figure out how to do it. I mean, the only thing that fell apart with me was my body.
Right.
Too much wear, too much tear, and then I had neck surgery and went back for my 10th year, but decided before training camp that it wasn't really worth it. Too hard.
Right. So, but it sounds like you were kind of in the perfect situation to transition out of the basketball world because your body had failed you. I mean, it wasn't like somebody else didn't have to tell you that you weren't good enough. Your body failed you. Did that make it easier?
Yeah, it made it easier when I met with my team doctor, and I kind of had the gut feeling that he was the one saying it might not be, if you were 25, maybe you should play. Because he was also in the same breath they were talking about the Miami Heat would love me in the coaching business or the front office. Right? So there was a little bit of a hint to me that, it might be really hard to make this year. And I know you don't feel great anyway. So I remember leaving my doctor and the team doctor's office, and I drove Coral Gables back home and told my wife, I think I'm done. And she said, really? I said, yeah, I'm done. So then the decision was, do I accept a job with Miami or being my wife and I are both from the state of Missouri. We had a condo in Columbia. My wife was newly pregnant, so this is the fall of 92. Our son was born in February of 93. I had, back in 1986, got my investment license. I was a finance major in college. And again, not knowing ever what anything would do, one summer I was in Columbia. A friend of mine, Brad Miller, ran a company called B.C. Christopher, which was an old firm out of Kansas City that no longer exists. But Brad was kind enough to say, why don't you hang around the office? You like finances. Why don't you study and get your license one year and see what happens? So my wife and I kind of made the decision that let's go back to Columbia. And we really thought we'd gravitate to either Kansas City or St. Louis, probably Kansas City because we were used to cities. But when we got to Columbia, had kids, perfect place for us to live, 2 hours from either city, hours from Lake of the Ozarks. It hit home. But I hit the financial world right away, worked for them for 4 or 5 years, and then started my own firm in 97. So I had kind of planned, as I was traveling in the NBA, there used to be an old show on Friday nights called Louis Rukeyser.
Yep.
That was on the PBS channel. It was a financial show, and I would always watch it. And if they had a money manager on, I would write down the name of that person. And if I traveled to New York or Dallas or Philly, I would call that person and say, could I come visit? So I would go visit these people and say, what do you like about your business, what you do? And so they'd tell me. And so what happened was I gravitated to more studying about pension plans, 401ks and 403bs and defined benefit plans. And so when I was done with work for B.C. Christopher, my focus was more probably on how do I kind of become a pension expert and enough to then start my own financial firm that will do financial planning and I'll do corporate stuff. And so that's how that I'd kind of already put the ball in motion because I didn't know how long I'd play. I mean, again, I had that first deal that was 2 guaranteed years. The second contract was nothing guaranteed, so I thought, okay, I got to start planning something else. And so that worked out. It worked out well.
And it sounds like you had a reasonable financial base, or maybe better than reasonable is what I'm gathering, because you were saving money all the time as you started this enterprise. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I knew nothing about finances. Come from a very middle-class family. When I studied finance in college, it was all foreign language to me. I mean, I didn't know what it meant, any of it. But I was getting paid, and the stock market became quite an interest of mine. Whether it was the futures markets or commodities markets, I loved how everything worked. And I remember the crash of '87 when I was playing for San Antonio. I was at our practice facility watching that, and watching these old guys at this fitness club. That's where we worked out. They were just staring at that, screen. And I had been buying small shares of little stocks and doing some stuff for myself. But I was as interested in finance as I was in basketball. I mean, it was appealing to me because I didn't know how it worked. I mean, it was something that I thought, gosh, you can study this stuff all the time, every day, and there's ways to look at it, whether it's technically or fundamentally. And I got a kick out of that. I read those books on the road. I started reading the Wall Street Journal. I tried that in college. That was just kind of a fake thing. If I sat at it having breakfast, there was no sports page, and I couldn't figure out what it was saying. So, but when I got in the NBA, you'd kind of read the journal a little bit and say, man, it's a different world than I'm used to. So, but what it was, and my wife would say, it gave me an interest. And when you're competitive, you've got to have something that drives you. And so my wife would probably say, yeah, he dove right in. And then the idea was, how do I have my own business, and when do I do that? So, it was just, I was done with basketball. I was hurt, meaning physically. I was worn out. The body was tired, but I had something else right away to jump into.
Did you how much thought did you give to the coaching aspect of it? Doesn't sound like much.
A little bit. My brother Bob, who's the coach at University of Missouri St. Louis, and had coached at UMKC and at Mizzou and Iowa State. And I could never. I'm kind of a homebody, meaning it was like the NBA. I first thought if I'd have stayed in Miami, I'd probably go in the front office, because I'd played for enough coaches in my career and assistants that, every few years they were leaving. You're hired to be fired. Right. And to me, that wasn't me or something I wanted for my family. I mean, it works for some. I just knew for me that probably wasn't it. And when I got back, I did start broadcasting, but when I got back, I had a lot of different people call about coaching. You want to get in, we'll hire you, we'll do this, we'll do that. For me, it wasn't a fit. I think I would love teaching the game and doing some of that, but there's a whole lot more to coaching than just what's on the floor. So, yeah, I was comfortable, and my wife was comfortable at getting out of the sports world a little bit. But the broadcasting kind of kept me in it, which was kind of fun.
What was your entree to broadcasting?
I came back the fall of '92, as I said, about ready to just not watch any sports for a while. And then the University of Missouri called and said, hey, would you do radio basketball? And I said, no, I really don't have any interest. I'll go to a few home games, and that'll be it. And I hung up, and about one day later, Norm Stewart called and said, John, you need to do the radio broadcast for us this year. And I said, well, I'm not sure. I said, I'm not sure I want to. He goes, it doesn't matter if you want to, but you're going to do the broadcast for us this year. So I did radio with Mike Kelly the first year, and maybe a TV game or two, but maybe that came the next year. Joe Castiglione was with the athletic department. And Joe had heard me on the radio, and he was with University of Missouri, and Joe said, you'd really be good on TV. So I did a few Missouri Network games. They probably did 6 a year. And from that second year, when I was doing those, then Joe called the Big 8 conference, Raycom, I believe, and said, you should have John do games. And, what comes always is, well, he's a Missouri guy. And Joe said, I don't think he worries about any of that. So the first game I did was with Dave Armstrong, and Dave being the guy that takes all the new guys, because Dave's great at it. And I think the first game I did was Kansas at Kansas State. Now, my history of growing up in the Big 8 was fabulous. I grew up watching and studying. So when I got done, I got these calls right away from Raycom. And they said, God, we wouldn't even known you're a Missouri guy. And I said, being kind of a smartass, I said, well, Missouri wasn't playing. And they're like, well, but don't you favor, don't you? I said, I don't know. It doesn't. I've already done that. Now I'll just do the game I'm seeing. So, but they were surprised by the names I was using from the past, whether it's the KU guys that I grew up watching, or the K-State people I grew up watching, or the former coaches, so that took off. The next year that I didn't do any radio, it was all TV. And from there, then ESPN called and said, could you do some ESPN? Again, there wasn't as many games back then, but they put me on ESPN2 with different guys. And later on, then some odd reason, I guess I got the Big Monday gig with Ron Franklin. It was terrific. And CBS called. And so I had a little run there. I had Kevin Harlan. Got to work with some of the great people. And then I took 3 or 4 years off because my kids were an age where I thought I don't need to be missing stuff. And the other part of it, Danny, I was in 97, I started my own company, October 15th, 1997. So Big Monday, Ron knew I was wearing out because as TV, here's what happened in the Big 12. When Bobby and I got to Texas Tech, there were times I was doing a Monday at Texas Tech and a Wednesday at Texas Tech and Saturday. I mean, it was hard to get there. I stayed out there one time a full week.
Right.
It was so crazy. I did a Monday night. Mizzou came down to play on a Wednesday. I had the hotel for a week, had my car for a week. Wednesday night, Texas Tech's playing Missouri. We're in Lubbock. I'm looking across the floor to see what alumni have their own plane here. And I see two different guys. At halftime of that game, I said, hey, can I get a ride home? And they go, yeah. And so my wife didn't even know I'm coming home. I fly home Wednesday night because I'm tired of Lubbock. Nothing against Lubbock. I land late. I call her. I said, hey, I'm coming home. I call ESPN, and I said, and they really don't really know where you are because it's just a travel company. I said, I need a flight to Lubbock on Friday. I left my rental car at the Lubbock Arena. I left my hotel with no, please don't open my door. Left everything there, just went home and came back. So it wore me down, and so then the next year what happened was ESPN wanted to use Fran Fischel on Mondays, which I thought was a great idea. But they wanted me to go elsewhere. And like a Big East game on Tuesday and somewhere on Wednesday, and then we'll give you the Big 12 game on Saturday. And I just said, I can't do it. I mean, I just can't do it. And I was busy with business, and my kids were an age. So I got out for a while. There was a gentleman by the name of Mike Moore, who was always with Raycom and all those creative sports, and now ESPN. And Mike would call me every year, and he'd say, can you do Saturday games for us? I said, no, I can't. I'm busy. My son's playing, on Friday nights. I'm coaching his little team or whatever it was. But my son, his junior year, decided not to play high school basketball, and Mike called again. And I said, Mike, will you do me a favor? I said, if you keep me on Interstate 70 on a Saturday game, I can go. I can KU, K-State, or Missouri. So they did that. I mean, it was very nice of them. They did it. It's the only way I probably would have done games. And then when Missouri joined the SEC, it was Mike Moore again, who now was kind of part of the SEC network, said, we'd really love you on doing SEC games. And I said, well, why don't I just stay in the Big 12? It's what I know. Now, I had been for CBS. I'd been to Kentucky and Florida maybe, and one Mississippi State one year. And he said, no, we'd really like you in the SEC. You know Missouri, you know A&M that's coming in. So I thought, okay, let's give that a shot just because people won't know me in those leagues. So they can, fire shots at me, which will be fun. And then, I started doing that because I hadn't been to those towns. Kind of wanted to see those college towns. So it's always been a good run because I've worked with so many great people.
But you did keep it at a distance. There was a point in time when you probably, if you had embraced it, could have been one of the top, 1, 2, 3 analysts in the country. But that just wasn't for you?
Yeah, there was a time. I actually had, at one point, I hired an agent out of New York. And the weird part of it was their job is to get me jobs, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And they get paid for me to get paid. So because I was starting my new business, not a lot of income coming in because I'm building this thing. So I did some games for the Seattle Supersonics before they left Seattle. They'd fly me out first class. I'd take a red eye back home. I I did some San Antonio Spurs games, whatever year it was, in the 90s probably. There was a strike season. Doc Rivers was their color analyst. The strike came when they started back up. Doc was going to do TNT games. So the Spurs would fly me down back and forth. And in the meantime, this agent, young guy, would say, man, I've got this, I've got that. And I just kept telling him, Jared, I can't go there. So I used them for about a year and a half, and it was that next year that CBS, everybody wanted to do more stuff. And I told Jared, I said, I'm not firing you, but I'm not going to hire you because you're doing what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And I'm not doing what you need me to do. ESPN sends 60 games, and I circled 26 Big 12 games. I mean, I circled the Big 12 ones and said, this is what I can do. And so I felt bad hiring him. Basically, if I would have gone that route, I probably wouldn't have been in Columbia, Missouri. It was too hard to travel from Columbia. If I'd lived in St. Louis or direct flights, it would just have worn me out. It would almost be back to being a coach, right? You're just on the road, you're doing this, you're doing that. And it didn't appeal to me, even though, I liked the games, and the money probably would have been fine and good. But I wanted to do something else. And I just thought if I can keep doing games, if they don't want me to do them, I was okay with that. I was fine if they don't want me to do games, but they've always called and can you do X amount? But at the time, I could have probably done a little more.
You mentioned that your wife mentioned also the fact that as a competitive person, you want to have something to stir those juices, and that financial aspect did it. I know you're an avid golfer. Is that scratched that itch a little bit too?
Yes and no. I wasn't very good in competition. It's harder.
Yes, it is.
I played.
I actually entered that world a little bit myself, and you always are worse than you think you're going to be.
Well, you find out. My son played at the University of Missouri. Really good college player.
Yep.
And decided not to, try the pros. It probably wasn't in his psyche to, travel, drive in a car and stay at a Motel 6. You do those kind of things. I mean, it takes a different mentality for some of that. And he saw some of his buddies starving doing that. But anyway, so I've played in a few, amateur things. Yeah, you got to be built for it. I mean, I think the older you get, you think you can handle it. Golfers can hit a shot and not think about the next shot till they get there. Some of us other people, if you're playing competition, I'd play a 4-hour round of competition, felt like I was out there 12 hours because I thought about everything that was going on about that golf. So I still do occasionally play, try to maybe play at a Missouri amateur event or a senior amateur event or a 4-ball event with a buddy because there is competition there. But the ones that grew up doing it are usually much better than those that later just think, oh, I'll go out and play. I can still play. I can still play with young guys. That's always the key for me. Can I still play with the young ones? Can I hit it far enough to play the tees they're playing? So, if I can do that and have a good enough game. But, the amateur events are fun, but they can wear you out.
Tell me about how you're raising your family, and you mentioned your son. You have a couple of daughters as well, and how that journey went for you.
It's, kids are kids. Fun, but you're still a parent. I hate to say I was never their best friend because I get along with my kids great. But, I think we're put on this earth I wanted my kids to be raised to be independent, to not have to have mom and dad there, even though we're there at all their events. My 2 daughters are dancers. My son was an athlete. So to be at the events, but not every event. My dad kind of had a philosophy at times. He didn't mind me coming home to tell him how we did once in a while versus him having to see it all. But, my kids, they're great kids. My son is in Kansas City, and he would tell you, and all of us know how great a city Kansas City is. And he's got buddies from college that are St. Louis guys that would swear by St. Louis, and they go home or they go back to St. Louis, but then they head to Kansas City because of how great of a city it's become. And then I've got 2 daughters. One's in Dallas, in the banking business, and she's also a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader, which is another entirely crazy world because there's, 500 or 600 try out every year. And
right.
They're kind of rock stars down there. And then the youngest child, the most independent, she's at Texas Christian, TCU, and she's on the showgirl team and another dancer. They grew up at a dance program in Columbia run by Nancy Laurie. Columbia Performing Arts Center is one of the best in the country. Their facilities are off the chart, and my girls have traveled the country dancing, and Nancy was great with that, and so they enjoy it. So, you raise them, I think, to be independent so that they can survive on their own, but we like seeing them when we can. COVID, the world of COVID hit in a weird way. I was at Nashville. I did the game, the first Wednesday night game, did the games. We found out Rudy Gobert obviously tested positive, so Thursday they called it off. My daughter, the youngest one, Anna Kate, she was in Kansas City. TCU men's team played that night, and so she was there. My wife went to go see her, so I'm driving home Thursday from Nashville because I didn't feel like flying. We didn't know what was going on in the world. My daughter's there. My other daughter, Caroline, had come home just to visit. So because then school got called off, and my daughter, Caroline, who was working in the banking industry, she was never going to work from home. We had our daughters home for 4 months or 5 months, which was really fun for us. And they're best of friends, so it was entertaining for us. But sometimes it works out in a good way.
You obviously have been an accomplished person at about every step of the way as everything you've done, and you've always done it with a great style and amiability. But anyone who's around you can tell that you're a very confident person in every aspect of what you do in such a nice way. How do you think you developed that? And it's something you should be proud of, but how do you think you were able to develop that type of personality?
Sometimes you have to fake it. I don't mean in a bad way, but, I tell my kids, you may not, if you walk into somewhere, you've got to act like you belong. And then I think, again, I'm the youngest of four, so you're always being challenged as a kid. But no matter what it is, you got to act like you belong or you won't belong. And, I think Norm Stewart kind of told me that when I was heading in the NBA. I was probably questioning, could I play? And he would say, you're good enough. Just do what you do well and stay away from the things you don't do well. And so in life, I think the preparation, you prepare to do things. But even if you're thrown in a situation, just kind of use simplicity to it. You got to be confident in who you are and the values you keep. The other part is humility is a strange thing. And when I run into people that aren't humble, I'm usually shocked because everybody's failed in life. I mean, maybe because I'm in the sports world, I would say I've failed more than I've been successful. That's just the nature. More lost games, more missed shots. So you get used to it. And so when you find someone that's a little loud and boisterous, it's probably not my kind of person, but that's okay. It makes the world go round. But I've always told my kids when you walk in somewhere, and whether my son was playing in the SEC golf tournament, chest out, head up, like you're there to win, or my daughter's entered dance stuff, you're walking in, and if whatever happens, but you've got to carry yourself in a way. But always be respectful of people. And everybody's opinion is different. We've got a crazy world now that everybody thinks that their opinion's the only one that works, and we all know that's not right. And but I did. I had great parenting from my parents, and I would say Norm Stewart was another guy that took his players and really taught us nothing's easy in this world. But when you watch Norm Stewart, when we went on the road, you talk about a guy with his chest out and his head up. That was Norm. And, he taught all of us, hey, life's not easy, but be ready for challenges and then handle them. And then, it's really how you react to it. If you go crazy on one side or the other, then you're probably going to go crazy the other way when it happens. So just being level-headed and keep your wits about you.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Kling Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Kling Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.